Hi, in this video I wanted to discover something I don't really, not discover, but describe something that's, I didn't necessarily know what I meant by this, but Plato and the malleability of something like evolution and the impossibility of life, describing certain events surrounding some kind of equilibrium like many videos I make. But yes, it's, the basic idea is like Plato or like dough going through a, whatever shaped peg you want to describe. It's a peg that can be described any shape, and you just press it through the hole, and that's the function of this evolution game. The impossibility of things being perfectly formed. First of all, just because they're formed doesn't mean they're perfect, and just because they're here doesn't mean they're perfect. They're not perfect because they exist, or they're not perfectly functioning. Sort of like life existing. It doesn't mean just because it exists doesn't mean it was just the right way. Just because something exists doesn't mean it's the exact right way it was meant to exist. The basic function and the fundamental aspect of the existence was created because we are a byproduct of that thing happening. And while it's here, we wouldn't be here experiencing it. But since we are here, we are essentially one and one to the idea that yes, it already happened. It happened, but without us here, we wouldn't be able to describe it. And there's plenty of other circumstances that would have allowed that to happen. But that doesn't mean it's rare. It just means that it happened to happen. We're here being able to describe it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here describing it, which could have happened, um, but it didn't. And since life is pretty much going to happen a certain way, or existence, things are going to move in a certain direction forward no matter what, based on a um, preemptive or something already existing, something that's only going to move forward um, deterministically. Um, yes, it was going to happen this way, and that doesn't mean it was rare. It just meant it was going to happen this way. You can almost look at it as a way of looking at the possibility of some kind of multiple universe idea where it can have not happen in also so many different ways. But that's not the way it functions. There's one reality, and that's the one that we're existing in. Um, but you can also do the size. Well, based on the size, it's increasingly rare, but it's also the fact that it was going to exist somewhere, and it happened to be where the byproduct of that existence living, or the byproduct, and since we're the byproduct, otherwise it wouldn't be here to exist. And obviously the size, it was going to happen somewhere. Um, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen in more than one place. More than one DNA molecule is going to spread and cause replication and get all these things that these traits or these, these qualities. But yes, since we're the byproduct, obviously we're going to be able to say it's rare or the perfect circumstances because we're a byproduct of those circumstances. That doesn't mean it's rare. It just means we're a byproduct describing the byproduct that we are and we're living in it. And that's the only thing there is. But sort of like evolution, things giving up this feature, that feature. We are a byproduct of the evolutionary process that created us. Um, Even though evolution is no longer much of a issue when it comes to describing and convincing people still controlled by theology, because many people, especially of certain faiths, do still believe in a religion, but they can still find ways to believe in a religion, but find a way to feel like some kind of God forced the function of evolution, which begs the question why. But regardless of that, the evolution question is no longer much of an issue or the problem. It's more of the theological approach when it comes to trying to find they find to that guides the evolutionary scientific function that we obviously know to be true, regardless of the fact that it changes. It's about figuring things more out, describing things generally, and realizing that there's more of an answer here. We were wrong and we're correcting for mistakes. It's not something that's objectively there. That doesn't mean it's not right. It just means we didn't describe it to its fullest. But it's about finding the truth, and that's the ultimate goal. And when it comes to that, it's the intention, but also the facts that exist. Facts that exist based on good intention of finding the truth means more than false intention and facts that stagnate and only remain the same, except from a person's psychology trying to convince themselves and manipulate the basic stagnating, um, very mandatory, very basic, very unmoving quality of something that a theological text might preach. So it's something as those basic ideas. So with bad intention, falsely trying to stagnate. I mean, that's a little less respectful or reasonable than good intentions trying to figure out the truth. And we do have the truth, and that's what we're finding. And just because we don't have it, or we get some things wrong here wrong or there wrong, there's always ideas out there that are trying to be tested and figured out. Regardless of that, um, evolution, basic ideas like that, giving up certain features, doing this, it's a mold, pretty much. Just because it's a mold doesn't mean it's unique or rare. It's following a guidepost. It's going through a tube, being forced through a tube based on a function, a mechanism pushing it through a function, pushing it through, sort of like the function of replication in the DNA molecule existing, and any function that exists in this universe. It's just moving parts moving at each other, being forced through molds and being put into enclosed cases, and if that enclosed case fills up too much based on the density of an object, you can only fill it up so much in the volume, um, it spreads out and it breaks out because you can only fit so much into it. But it's a mold. It's a mold that doesn't break. It's a guidepost. It's a forcible tube that it's being spit into um, based on the environment that's controlling it. And you have little to no effect on it except that your psychology would react to it in certain ways because it's another byproduct of that same function. So it's like it's a mold moving through a tube, a shaped tube, or moving some kind of malleable substance through a hole. It's going to take form of that hole and it's going to have that shape, and it's going to squeeze through it because it has a shape that's forcing it to shape a certain way. And that's exactly what's happening. The function of existence, the possibility of life, it describes all those things. It's just a matter of pushing it through a mold, and that's happened to be the thing that happened to exist. And it's not rare. It's not unique. It's not unlikely. It's not unlikely, but it doesn't mean it's happening everywhere, based on the evidence that we have. Um, things were just right. In the circumstances surrounding us were not. We're unique and just right, but it was going to happen a certain way regardless. So it's something that's going to happen a certain way, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. And that's another way of looking at it. Just because it happened a certain way doesn't mean it's a perfect way. And that's what a lot of people like to think when it comes to just perfectly. Well, things aren't perfect. You just have to take one look at life and you can realize that it's not perfect. The function it serves is just a mold, obviously. Feeling pain is a mold of preserving the life form to make it recognize that it can have all sorts of things happening without it noticing. Otherwise, the life form would exist. It's just a form of the function allowed based on the allowed function of the existence, and not allowed consciously, but an allowed function based on the moving parts that happen to create a function based on a deterministic mechanism. And everything that happens is based on even all the things that are already created, like the things that are a form of creating the function. The moving parts are part of the function, the mechanical function that exists as well. Because the thing that created them was part of the same function, creating the effects that those things are having and the new things that they're creating. So it's all part of the same idea, the same function. So yeah. Anyway, it's basically just the mold idea. Obviously, it's just about different pieces of reality interacting with other different pieces of reality. I mean, that's all we're doing is just interacting with an environment, and that environment, based on the function that already allows it to exist, regardless of what we want to understand or not, based on our own internal set of logic, is just another part of the function that allows based on the existence of this thing or this interaction. Everything that was created was based on an interaction as well. An explosion. But yes, these are just basic functions and interactions that are happening, and products of those, and byproducts, and that's all we are. So like Plato threw a round or whatever whatever whole or function or form or outline. We're following an outline, logically an outline based on an outline, or that's forcing a function on us. Sort of like Plato threw a round hole, describing evolution, um, and the perceived equilibrium and the possibility of life. So all this stuff isn't as impossible as it seems to be, based on the all the perfect functions and allowed things to be perfectly. But it was a function that was unlikely, but it was based on a mold function. The mold was hard to create, but once the mold started, it was a function that just followed suit based on the interactions, and it was only going to happen one way anyway. So creating the mold was hard, but the mold was the thing that already existed. We already had the mold. It's about finding the mold, finding the material to push through the mold. But the mold already existed, so it's a matter of finding that function to push through the mold, um, or something like that. But the basic idea is pretty much intact. At least I think. I think. I know. Doesn't matter. But yes, what flavor it is, it's just that's a function. It doesn't matter what it smells like. It's just a function of pushing that stuff through. The quality doesn't mean anything. The quality means something, but it's a function. The way it smells, it's a matter of the thing being pushed through that peg. It's a matter of it was already there, but the idea of its impossibility is a self-perception, at least trying to convince yourself so. So anyway, it's about finding one aspect of that. What creates the mold, whatever it is, it just happened to exist, and the value is in the mold pushing through the function, and we're a byproduct of that function. So anyway, if there's anything else to mention on the subject, I can always mention it next time. This feels like a very inadequate video, but I'm trying. But anyway, um, so until next time, if there's anything else to mention, there's always another time. So thank you.